I've realized in making a number of videos discussing strategy and tactics in checkers that I've never actually made a video about the very basics and the rules for playing this game. That's going to change today. Needless to say, this video is intended for anyone brand new to checkers and would like to learn the official rules. For those who already know this game, I'll briefly discuss some other variants of checkers that you might find interesting. So, how do you play checkers? Before I go into the rules, the first thing I like to point out is there are many different forms of checkers played throughout the world. The game I am talking about today is predominantly played in the US, UK, and other English-speaking countries. It's called checkers in the US and straight checkers or draughts in other places. This game is played on an 8 by 8 board with 32 of the 64 squares being used. This is an official board, but they can come in different colors. When opening up the board for the first time, ensure that the darkest square is in the left-hand corner. The game is played with 12 pieces on each side, and setting it up looks like this. Red and white, as you can see here, are the official colors, but black and white, red and black, and yellow and red are also common color combinations. So the board is set up with 12 pieces on each side, and the darker color goes first. So here, red goes first, and the pieces are alternating in turn. So red moves one square here, and white is going to move one square there. Only one piece can move at a time to the corresponding diagonal square. Once you touch a piece, you must move it. One of the most common questions I'm asked involves jumping and capturing pieces. If there is an opportunity to jump, you must take it no matter what. That's the official rules. So if you want to play the right way, that's how you do it. So what exactly does that look like? Well, here, red moves here, and now white is going to move here next. Red cannot move anywhere else on the board. It can't move here next, here, or here. It must capture this piece. So it must capture, and now white must do the same. It cannot move anywhere else on the board. It can either jump from here to here, or it can jump from here to here, but it must take either of these jumps. So another example is in this opening. So in this position, if white goes here next, again, red must capture. Now white has a chance to either take a double jump here or the single. It doesn't matter which one it takes, it must take one or the other. So if it wants to take the single, great. And if it wants to take the double, that can also work. But it must take either one of those jumps. What are kings? Kings are pieces that are promoted once they reach your opponent's back row. Kings are represented by placing another piece on top of it. So here, for example, the red piece is going to enter the back row, and it will be represented as a king as such. So kings are powerful. They can move forward and backward and can jump forward and backward. Again, one square at a time, but still very powerful. A rule that trips a lot of people up is once you become a king, here's an example, once this piece becomes a king, the turn ends for red. So as much as red would like to jump this piece right away, it can't. The turn stops now, and now it's white's turn to move, and now the red king can move again. How does the game end? A game can end with a win, loss, or a draw. A win happens when you capture all of your opponent's pieces. So in this example, if red is to move, it only has a choice of this square or this square, and no matter what happens, white is going to jump it, so white is going to win the game. A win can also occur if you can block your opponents from making any additional moves. So if you move last, you win. And let me set up an example to show you what that looks like. Okay, so as you can see, white is pretty much run out of moves here. And if it's red's turn to move, it just has one move to make on the board, one playable move, and that's moving from this square to this square. Once red makes that move, the game is over and red wins because white has no more playable moves on the board. A draw occurs when both players agree that a win cannot take place. This typically happens when there's an equal number of pieces or kings on the board. So, for example, say a position like this. So you can request a draw. Either one of the players can request a draw at this point, and it will be accepted. Now, if your opponent does not accept the draw, then you can enact or request a 40 or 50 move rule. If your opponent cannot advance the position, which means reducing the number of pieces on the board or advancing pieces to become kings, then the game can be declared a draw after 50 moves. I mentioned there are many different variants of this game played throughout the world. There is international checkers, which is played with 20 pieces on each side and on a 10 by 10 board. Pieces can jump forward and backward, and kings can fly. There are also Brazilian and Russian checkers, which have slight differences in rules and are played on a smaller 8 by 8 board. Italian checkers is played on a board that mirrors the US and UK game. In that version, maximum jumps must occur and pieces cannot capture kings, which can make kings extremely powerful. Turkish checkers is popular in the Middle East, and I really don't know much about that variant. I do know that it's played with 16 pieces and starts on the second and third row of the board. Pieces do not move diagonally as they do in other variants, but instead north and south and east and west. So that's the basics of checkers, and I hoped I helped settle any myths or any debates that may have been had out there. If you have any additional questions about any of the rules, please let me know. Thanks, as always, for watching.